This week, there's been a pretty big announcement. There's been some news from Airbnb on this new off-platform policy. And what we're going to do today is just dig into it, really. Dig into what it says, dig into how to stay compliant without losing control of your business too. So one of the big things is, I've seen it happen too many times where people will get kicked off of Airbnb or one of their listings will get frozen and their income basically stalls because they're way too reliant on Airbnb. So how to stay compliant with Airbnb's rules without losing control. And at the same time too, Airbnb is just, they are the behemoth in this industry and they do a really, really good job at getting more clients for us, getting more guests for us, getting more customers for us. And we only pay them 3%. Now the guest pays 15%, but we only pay them about 3%, maybe a little bit more in some markets. And to have just like 1, 2, 3, 4 listings and think that you have a business based on only having 3 or 4 listings, Airbnb does a really good job. So going out and trying to spend all this money on trying to build a business outside of your like 3 or 4 properties, meaning taking guests away from Airbnb, may not be the right fit for you. So like I'm going to go through some different viewpoints and I want to make this training as effective as possible for you guys. I'm going to show kind of the good things that I see, the bad things, but I also want you guys to be engaged and be involved in this training too. Ask me some questions. I will try and cover them as much as I can here. I am going to be sharing my screen some, so I may not be able to see that chat fast enough. The way that we do it in live is a little bit different than the way you guys are seeing it. So please ask questions and I will try and make sure that I get to them. If anybody logs into Airbnb right now, this is what you'll see in Airbnb when you log in. So review our updated terms and policies. So that just brings you to their updated terms and policies. And it also asks you to obviously agree to them, but you want to make sure you go in and read this. I'm not going to go through the entire terms of service, but I'm more going to focus on this communication, this email that got sent out last week or earlier this week. So the off-platform and fee transparency policy. And I know a lot of you guys have seen this. So if you do have questions on this, just drop it in the comments, but I'm going to start at the top here and go through everything that's here in bold. So number 1, moving current, future, or repeat guests, or repeat bookings off of Airbnb. This includes asking or encouraging users to move current, future, or repeat bookings, including reservations off of Airbnb. So if you're doing this right now, before somebody books and you're trying to give them your phone number or you're trying to get their phone number and you're doing some secret code right now to get them to call you so they can book direct with you, don't do that anymore. Airbnb has AI that can tell, and they're already doing that. I mean, they were doing this 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago when I started. They already had AI that would flag that, and then they would reach out to you or they would just shut that conversation down. So if you guys are doing that, absolutely do not. The second thing there is it says current guests, future guests, or repeat bookings. So if you have a current guest that's staying at your house and they message you and they say, hey, I would like to extend. Can you extend? And you say, yes, would you like to book direct? And you're doing all this on the Airbnb platform. Airbnb will find out. They're screening every single one of these messages. So if you're saying, do you want to book direct? Or if you're sending your direct booking website through the Airbnb messaging platform, I know most of you guys aren't doing that. You need to stop that right now. And then also for repeat bookings. So this one's interesting. Typically, I mentioned this earlier, you pay 3% to acquire a customer. That is very cheap. And then once you get that customer, it's still technically Airbnb's customer. They're just using your home, right? But you have their phone number. And if they can opt in to some sort of, marketing policy, if you want to market to them off platform and get their phone number and send text marketing, like I use Go STR marketing to do that, but you need to make sure you're getting permission from that guest somehow. So that's what like Airbnb is trying to prevent. Now, for the situation where guests are trying to extend the reservation, if you want to, you can pick up the phone, give them a call, have a conversation with them. And if it comes up where, they want to extend and they don't want to extend on Airbnb, They can extend through your direct if you want to do that. Airbnb makes it so easy though, especially for existing stays. And at the end of the day, you're really not saving that much. I mean, you're saving about 8%. You're either making a little bit more or the guest is saving a little bit, but the margins we have is about 18% total. But you still have to pay, like if you're paying Stripe or you're paying some sort of payment processor, that's typically 3 to 4%. So really you only have 14% to work with. And how much are you giving to the guest? So if you're splitting it with them, you're making an extra 7, they're saving 7. So, plus you don't have all the additional protection from Airbnb. So you just need to think about these things before you just take those bookings off site. It also says here, including links to take people off the site, a frequently asked question, and I was going to cover this later, but a frequently asked question I get all the time, or at least I have over the past couple of days, is can I still have my Hostfully link, that has my guidebook in it, which also has some of my information about booking direct with me. If you are software connected, like you have a property manager that is integrated with Airbnb, like Guesty, Hostaway, Hospitable, that sort of thing, you can still do that. I will say I don't know how long that's going to last, but if you guys saw Mark Simpson's post in the group earlier, you're still allowed to send your Hostfully guidebooks. You're still allowed to send rental agreements. This is straight from an inside source at Airbnb, a source that I also know as well. So, you can still send those, but I don't know how long that's going to last. And what Vrbo does on their side is if their AI detects you're sending a link or sending your phone number before they book, somebody in the comments tell me what happens. Like when a guest tries to send their phone number to you before they book, says, "Hey, can you call me?" What happens? But on Vrbo, if somebody decides to send their phone number or their email prior to booking with you, you still get that message. Exactly. It just says XXXXXXX. Like it doesn't give you that information. You're just not going to see it. And I think Airbnb probably will do that in the future. I don't know if it's going to do it, for the software connected folks, but I would keep an eye on it to make sure. And if you have a bunch of listings, you're going to want to keep an eye on it too. And make sure you give this training to your team as well to make sure that they keep an eye on it as well. And Airbnb, yeah, Yasir said Airbnb does flags things as suspicious as well, right? So that is the second thing. Offering and soliciting discounts to book off Airbnb, absolutely do not do that. Canceling existing full or partial reservations to rebook off Airbnb. For those of you that are doing midterm rentals, it's tough, right? Like you get paid once a month for midterm rentals, and let's say somebody's staying with you for 6 months. And you see, that 6-month reservation, let's say it's $30,000. You see how much they're paying Airbnb. You're probably like, man, like that's a lot of money, right? But, and again, you don't get paid all that up front. You only get paid every 30 days or so. You get paid when they check in, then you get paid basically every 30 days after that. I've wanted to do the same thing where I'll just, call up the guests and be like, hey, if you want to save a little bit of money, we'll make a little bit more as well. But what we can do is we can do it direct with us. And at the end of the day, make it better off for both of us. If you just book that first reservation on Airbnb, but then any reservation after that, we'll do it direct. I've done that in the past. I'm probably not going to do that anymore. Again, I really only make about 7% more. Now, 7% for, $1 million is a lot, but 7% for, $1 million revenue is a good bit. So for those of you that, don't have a ton of listings already, it's probably not worth it for you because you don't have that scale. You don't have that brand yet. So I highly recommend, like, Airbnb does a really good job. I wouldn't mess with that right now. If you get your listings taken down and your revenue, you get 80% of your bookings from Airbnb, another 10% from Vrbo, and maybe another 10% direct, like I probably wouldn't recommend it right now. And there's other ways that you can keep guests happy, but this first part right here is I think really crucial and what they're looking for. I know people that that do those secret messages that charge $30,000 for weekend. And it's something to think about. And I personally wouldn't do it. Airbnb does such a good job of marketing. They've got way more money. They spend millions and millions and millions on SEO, search engine optimization. So when somebody is searching, vacation rental in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina, you're going to see Airbnb and you're going to see Vrbo. You're not going to see anybody's direct booking sites. Now, the folks that are going to show up, maybe middle of the page, are going to be the ones that have a lot of listings and are going to be the ones that, have lots of clicks because they've been building up their SEO on their websites for a long time now. Keeping it moving here, failure. And let me know if I'm going to stop here and let me know if we have any questions so far. So Marie asks, what if your welcome book link is set up through Hostaway? Any issues with that? Yeah, Hostaway is a software that's integrated with Airbnb. So I don't see an issue with that right now. Again, I would be aware of it. Let me see what else we got here. Yes, sir. Yeah, let's do a call next week. What are your thoughts on having a book with us again section on the guidebook? You can have a section on there, but I probably wouldn't have a link. Mark Simpson made a good point. If your guidebook is password protected, no AI bot is going to get through that. So that's something you may want to look at. Just password protect your guidebook and then give them that password in the message. So, hey, here's a link to our guidebook. The password is, Brittany or something like that, or whatever the name of your property is. Well, our rental agreement that is required by the county is sent to the guest via PDF filler to sign. PDF filler requires their email address. Would that be an issue? It's so much easier to collect a signature digitally. Asking guests for or using contact information or identity in ways unrelated to their stay or that compromise the quality of their stay. So this is basically just asking for their confirmation prior to booking or even asking for their email after the booking as well. And they say down here, you may require additional contact identity information if it was required for legal compliance reasons and can be verified by a host upon request by Airbnb, such as local laws, HOA rules, building security rules. In these instances, hosts must include information about what is required and why in their listing description. So put this in your listing description. And this is one of the changes I'm going to make. Our HOA requires them to fill out basically an entire PDF. We send it through Adobe Signature, very similar to what you do. Description, you'll be required by our HOA to fill out a document that requires you to input, it's like car information, license information, how many people are staying with you, names of those people. A lot of us that are in HOAs, even condos too, are going to have to deal with that. And so really what we're going to do is continue putting those links in there, but just make sure that you put it in your listing that they're required to do that. And I was actually working on that on my listings that were required to do it as well. So in such instances, hosts must include information about what is required and why in their listing description, so guests understand that this is an additional step requirement prior to booking. So they've really, Airbnb is really guest focused, right? They talk about how many more properties they want to add and how many hosts they want to add, that sort of thing. Like they're just trying to get as many, hosts on their platform. But at the end of the day, their policies are very guest friendly and they don't want guests jumping through hoops. And that kind of brings me back to the second step here, which was failing to disclose reservation fees at the time of booking. So one thing I'll recommend here, guys, is list out all of your fees in your listing that are optional clearly. So if you have pool fees, if you have, a resort fee or something like that, that's optional. Like, hey, if they want to use the resort amenities or anything like that, that's optional. Make sure that you're putting that in your listing prior to, so that you're not surprising them afterwards. That's really what Airbnb is trying to accomplish here. And then, there's other fees that you're going to do. Like I've got an HOA fee of $175 every single stay. What I do is I just put that in the resort fees section in Airbnb, and then it's just baked into the average nightly rate. All Airbnb is trying to do is just get everything baked into one price. They don't want to see 10 different fees, right? If you've got a linen fee, if you've got like all those kind of fees, they're trying to get that done beforehand at the beginning before the guest even books, right? Pet fees, that sort of thing too. And then what else they're trying to do there too is keep payments and everything on Airbnb's platform. So if you guys are requesting money through Venmo or through Zelle or through, you sending them a quote to go ahead and pay for stuff, stop doing that. Just use, like Airbnb makes it really simple. Just use what they have inside of, their payment processor and just edit that reservation, change that reservation, just do that inside of Airbnb's app. So you don't have to mess with, worrying about, sending your Venmo account or sending your Zelle account and AI being flagging. And then all of a sudden, your listing gets taken down and your entire account gets taken down too. So a couple more things: failure to disclose a security deposit. Most hosts aren't doing security deposits really anymore. A lot of us are doing damage waivers. So one of the things too is, damage waivers, I think, have become very, very, very popular. If you don't know what a damage waiver is, essentially it's for one reservation, I'm going to pay X amount, let's say $25 to waive or to safely. And that $25 is going to get me an additional $3,000 in damage protection. If I'm staying there and I damage a couch, or if I damage a light fixture, or if something gets damaged, I'm protected up to $3,000. If you're familiar with Vrbo already has that option embedded. Airbnb does not have that option embedded in their platform, right? They just use air cover. And we all know how bad air cover is. Like air cover just doesn't cover, it covers air. It literally doesn't cover anything. I stopped using it, and that's why I use Wavo now. But essentially, you're not going to make it optional for guests anymore. You stop charging the security deposits, and then just add a management fee, which is, one of the sections inside pricing and calendar. You can add an additional fee, which is a management fee, and then charge that $25 to the guest. And then it's going to get baked into the average nightly rate. That's what I do. That's what I've been doing for 3 years now. And then you're protected and they're protected. They really don't even know at the end of the day. Wavo does ask you to put that information in the listing somewhere, or, I put it in my guidebook. I also put it in my rental agreement too, for Airbnb and Vrbo and for Direct, so that they see it and they see that they're protected for up to $3,000. And it's not just some like surprise type of fee, right? So that's really what Airbnb is trying to prevent. They're trying to prevent all these sudden fees. And for those of you that are down in Florida that are worrying about the pool heat stuff, I always recommend, guys, just keep the pool heated. Like I keep my hot tub heated at all times. And yeah, it may cost me a little bit more, but at the end of the day, I just have my team turn it off and turn it back on before every single stay. And it feels more luxury to me, and it may cost me a little bit more, but a lot of times I'll just bake that into the average nightly rate anyways. And, my properties are photographed well. We have 5 stars on 95% of my properties. So, at the end of the day, I'm like, we're going to get booked, right? I'm doing the revenue management stuff right. I'm not worried about an extra $40 per reservation because of the pool heat. So it's kind of a nickel and dime thing to me. Any questions on that? Ben said, what about touch stay or guidebooks that are not integrated with Airbnb? As long as your software integrated, like you have Hospitable and you're sending those messages through Hospitable that has your touch stay guidebook, you should be fine right now. This is according to a source at Airbnb. So make sure you're A/B testing it. Make sure you still can see that message. Make sure the guests can still see that message. You may get a warning email from Airbnb. I've gotten warning emails from Airbnb. I've gotten warning emails from Vrbo in the past where I was breaking a rule that I didn't know about. So just make sure that you're also paying attention to your email and when Airbnb does say something about this, because again, Airbnb is going to be using AI to track a lot of this stuff. They're going to be screening all these messages and using these big machines to basically track all of this to see who's breaking the rules and who's not. And they can tell which Airbnb accounts are software integrated and which ones aren't as well. And if anybody is going through a review removal request right now, and or has gone through a review removal request in the last like 6 weeks, maybe even 2 months, getting a review removed right now is going through their AI platform, and it's absolutely awful. It's terrible. So, maybe they're going to use different parameters for this technology that they're going to be rolling out for this policy. But if they're using the same technology that they're using for the review removals, we're in for some tough times. And that's why like being in these groups and being in the STR Secrets Facebook group, I think is so important because we can share this information back and forth with each other. So one, if anybody has gotten a review removed recently and gone through that process successfully and has any tips for us, please let us know in the comments or make a post for us. If somebody does that, I'll do a 30-minute one-on-one with them as well. Just drop that information here because I'm interested in learning more about this too, because I've gotten 3-star reviews for stuff that just was very, very minimal and really retaliatory, and we weren't able to get those reviews removed because we went through this AI system and it's taking weeks and weeks and weeks just to get one review removed or even to get somebody on the phone. Same thing. I've seen a party being thrown at one of the STR Secrets members, Thomas. Like there's a party thrown at one of his houses. He had to shut it down and has all the proof in the world of there was a party. The guest was breaking all of the house rules, and the guest left, I think, a 1-star review. It was either a 1-star or 2-star review, and they're still fighting to get it taken down. So let's share information here if it is winning. And again, if the AI system is anything like this new policy is anything like the review removal request, it's going to be, we just have to keep our eyes open and don't do anything sketchy, like, asking people to pay you via check or something like that, or giving these secret messages. We have to keep things buttoned up right now and then share information. So I'm going to keep it moving here. There's a couple other things I think that are pretty interesting. And actually staying on this topic here, asking for their contact information. So one of the things that I've done, and this was actually from a learning experience when I was first a host. I think this was my second month hosting. This was like maybe June of 2020. Airbnb had an outage. They had an outage for probably, I don't know, it was probably 3 hours. And one of my guests was trying to get into the property and I couldn't contact them. I didn't have their phone number. I didn't have their email. I didn't have a PMS at the time, so it wasn't saved. And so one of the things that I always do, and I stopped that starting today, was I would ask them for their email. So I would, as they booked a new reservation, I would say, thanks for booking with me. I'm so excited to host you. Can you please let me know your phone number and your email address in case I need to contact you during your stay? With this new policy, Airbnb is cracking down on that. So I am no longer asking for their email. And what I'm doing is I'm still going to ask for their phone number. Really, I'm going to ask, hey, is the phone number we have on file for you the right phone number that you want us to use for your stay? Because I have seen in the past, like where, the booker will book, but somebody else will get there early and have questions, that sort of thing. They need to call me, or, they're actually not staying there until the 3rd or 4th day, and I can't get in touch with who's actually staying there, right? So I always ask, is this the correct phone number? And that's one thing Airbnb is saying you can do. You can ask them, hey, is this the correct contact information that you want me to reach out to? And, I think one of the things that I'm also looking at doing in the future too is just doing a lot more SMS, doing a lot more texting. Since we do have their phone number, there's tools like Zapier that, since we do get their phone number, we can, send them an automated message, that sort of thing. that is off of the Airbnb platform. Now, you have to make sure that you're getting, approval from the guest that you can do that. But one of the things you can do is just pick up the phone and call them and just ask them, hey guys, is it all right if I call you? Is it all right if I text you? You're still getting that verbal confirmation. But again, AI is what Airbnb is using to track down what policy is being upheld and what policy is being broken. So if you do off-platform texting and off-platform calling, you should be all right. I don't know if anybody else remembers this, but when I first started using Airbnb in like 2020, Airbnb had their own calling platform. I don't know when that went away. I hired my first assistant really in 2021. He's the one that's mainly doing the calling, but they had their own calling platform. So that, could come out in the future as well. I could see Airbnb bringing that back using Twilio or something like that to completely not give out the phone number anymore and just have everything go through the platform and through the app. So how do we get their contact information? One, you already have their phone number, but two, if you really want their email, there's a couple things you can do. So number one, inside, if you are software connected, you're sending your guidebook, let's say it's TouchStay, let's say it's Hostfully, you can still send those links. One of the things that I'm going to keep testing is adding in a two-step essentially. So they go to that link that I send them, and then in Hostfully, you can actually ask for their contact information in order to get that guidebook. So you just say, you send them the link, it brings you to this Hostfully page, and then it asks them for your name and your email address, and then you can store that. Now that'll be stored in Hostfully, so you have to take that information, put it in your PMS. It's not going to be as simple as Hospitable makes it, but that's one thing I'm going to test as well. Now, again, Mark Simpson mentioned this earlier. Airbnb's bots and their AI can probably detect that, but are they going to crack down on that? We don't know. So we have to test it. The other thing that I think is really interesting, I was kind of thinking about some different ideas, is I have some QR codes in my listing, and I do not use StayFi right now. I think I've seen a couple questions about StayFi. If you're software connected, StayFi is totally fine right now. It's something that's in your listing. Airbnb doesn't have a policy really against that, from what I can read about StayFi being in your listing. It's not like they're trying to get in your house and they need to use StayFi or anything like that. So, one of the things I'm looking at is QR codes and doing it tastefully done, where I can ask for reviews, to my Google My Business, or I can just direct them to opt in to marketing information and get, 10% off their next stay, or 15% off their next stay, that sort of thing. I'm just putting more of that information throughout your listing, maybe on the door, maybe in some little area in the kitchen, something that's like tasteful. It's not like totally in your face marketing, because you don't want them to feel that way when they're in the home, right? So that's another thing that you could do that is, not on Airbnb's platform. They would never really know. Nicholas did say, what about taking payment for amenities and extra services through Hostco? Yeah, I would think that Hostco is probably worried right now, because there are extra services. I mean, that really is breaking the policy that is outlined here in Airbnb. So I would think about how to offer that. Maybe it's something that's actually physically in your listing that you can do, like a QR code, or maybe like a menu as well. Maybe it's your physical guidebook. I actually went away from physical guidebooks because, COVID, you didn't want people touching stuff. You had to sanitize it, that sort of thing. But maybe it's something that comes back. And you can, create some sort of menu of different things, and you can tell them, hey, before you go, or when they get there, hey, check out the guidebook. There's some really cool discounts on some really cool things. And you can do that. You can obviously do that, but not include the links to it inside the messaging. Let's see here. Vanessa said, since this news came out, have you changed any of the verbiage in your listings regarding the rental agreement, ID verification, and security damage holding waivers in Happy Guest? Happy Guest was actually one of the tools that I was about to test. And if you're using Happy Guest, I would probably test it or be worried right now. You know, that's why I use Wavo and I just bake the damage waiver into my nightly rate. But it was something I was looking at. So Happy Guest and Hostco, I think are some that are really going to suffer here. And then also there's some other stuff here too about the Airbnb platform, you know, taking people off of the Airbnb platform for reviews and for feedback. A lot of hotels do this. And I think it's actually really cool. I was thinking about offering like some sort of survey as well and including that in my checkout instructions of just like, here's some things, like ask them some questions about some things that we can improve on, or maybe what they did during their stay, that sort of thing. That wouldn't be a review, but Airbnb does not want you doing that anymore. Because they also don't want you giving, you know, the guests giving their contact information away as well. One of the other things too, requiring guests to use other websites or apps to physically access their listings. So there's some big companies out there that use, like, I think it's Sonder uses like their own app. There's a bunch of like hotels that use their own app too, which I think are okay in this instance. If you read the exceptions, but it's, if you need a secondary piece of software or app, you can't do that anymore. So I thought that was very interesting. And one of the other things too, if you guys are using Yale and their integration with Airbnb, that's actually no longer offered as well. So I would assume that integration will probably go away, but that's technically breaking their policy too. So it's pretty interesting. Let's see what other questions we got here. All right, it's a lot about retaliation. I knew that would fire people up. Yeah, can we still send rental agreements? Yes, Michael, you should be able to still send rental agreements, especially if it's through your software connected integration through Airbnb. So if you're using a property management system like Hospitable, like Guesty, like Hostfully, like HostAway, those sort of things, you should right now be able to continue sending those. I would assume that they're going to update this policy and just kind of clarify what that's going to look like. But, you know, asking for contact information for their background checks, that sort of thing. You know, companies like Superhog that does that. There's really no clear answer from Airbnb if that's going to be allowed and continue to be allowed. So if you're using Superhog right now, I would probably be calling them to see if they've gotten any answers from Airbnb. So Deb said, I use OwnerRez to send the rental agreement and get their email. We send check-in info via email. Is that okay? Yeah, as long as you're sending that rental agreement through OwnerRez and it's going through their platform, and then you're getting the email from that, from what I've been told by Airbnb, through a source, that should still be okay. But you obviously need to be aware and start testing that as well. Yeah, and then sending check-in info via email, I would probably still send check-in info through the Airbnb app and try and keep it consolidated through the Airbnb app as well, because you're going to be checking multiple things. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Yale is like the integration that's with Yale. They can still create the codes for you, but if you're getting them to like download the August app or the Yale Access app, Airbnb does not want you to do that anymore, according to the policy. And what I just use like the lock system that's through Hospitable, and it just makes it so much easier than using Yale, because it's also, Yale's not integrated with Verbo. But yeah, Cheryl, what I'm going to do, guys, I think this is really important too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a little guideline of what to do and send this out to everybody, that if you just comment policy in the chat here, I'm working up a document that I'm going through right now live on this training that I can send to you guys, just so you guys can have it for reference. I know this is a 45-minute training. I know I'm going through a lot of different questions too. So I will send a consolidated basically just one sheeter. If you comment policy, I will send that to everybody on here. Juliana said, I missed the StayFi part. Yeah, so I mean, in here, I think StayFi is still good. StayFi, with this policy, Airbnb again is going to use AI to figure out how you're getting the contact information or how you're breaking their policy. So technically, in this policy, they say you cannot have some sort of way to collect the guest information for marketing purposes to book off of Airbnb. And if you're using StayFi and guests need to put their email in, put their contact information in order to get access to the internet, Airbnb technically doesn't know that, right? You're still giving the Wi-Fi username and password through the app. It's still in the listing. Airbnb is not technically going to know that. Are you going to be breaking their policy? You're going to be breaking their policy if you use that contact information to market to them to book off of their app. So one of the things that I was talking to Sam Estrella, or actually Sam sent out an email earlier about Go STR Marketing, which is a text and email marketing platform to get people to rebook with you. One of the things he said in the email was like, hey guys, why don't you just get them to rebook with you on Airbnb? Like, you have their contact information using StayFi, you've got their email and phone number, like get them to rebook with you on Airbnb. I mean, that's not breaking their policy. If you're so worried about their policy, you could, send your Airbnb listing to get them to rebook with you through Airbnb. I think that's pretty smart for people that have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10 listings. Now, again, if you have more than that and you're trying to build a brand and you're trying to build a business off of Airbnb, then what you want to do is have more things in your listing, like in your actual physical home, that show that brand. You're also going to want to build a social media presence that is going to be, pick one, don't do all of them, but pick one, let's say Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, that shows your brand as well. And so you want to bring brand awareness. When people are staying at the house, they want to remember your brand or the brand for that home. And that's really where you're going to build a business off of Airbnb without breaking their current policy, without breaking their current rules. So that, any other questions on that? Vera said, can we still use Safely? Yeah, still use Safely, but don't make it optional. Just do it for every single guest. And it said, what about us managers who have hosts wanted to charge an early check-in fee on a case-by-case basis? Should that now be made clear in the listing? Yeah, so make that clear in the listing. So put it in the listing description. Early check-in is between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. And if you want to do that, it's $25 or $50 or $100 or whatever it is. And then make sure you're charging that payment through the Airbnb app. Yeah, Michael Hayes said, rebooking through Airbnb is sometimes way better since they remit occupancy taxes for you as well. I know people are messing this up left and right. They are not charging the occupancy tax for those rebookers, and they're not remitting and paying the occupancy tax. So if you're using OwnerRez or using Guesty or using Hospitable, in most states right now, you're responsible, and even on Vrbo too, you're responsible for the occupancy tax, remitting that from the guests, so charging the guests for that, but then taking those monies and then paying the jurisdictions, usually the state and then usually the county, their portion of that occupancy tax. And it's kind of a pain, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm in 6 different markets now, and I have to do that for 6 different markets, for the state and for the county. So it's technically 12 times per listing for an off-platform booking. And it's a pain. At the end of the day, it is. So rebooking through Airbnb or Vrbo, if they do that for you in your market, is sometimes way easier because you don't have to pay an additional thing. So I broke this down earlier. Airbnb charges us 3%, right? They charge the guests about 15. That's 18%. If a guest wants to book with you direct, you still have to pay, let's say 4% for payment processing. And there's other things that you're not getting from Airbnb, like, the liability policy, air cover, which isn't really that great, but there's 14% right there. If you split that down the middle with the guest, that's 7%, 7%. So just calculate on one booking for 3 nights, how much more are you going to make for the amount of pain that you're going to take on in order to do that? So it's just thinking through, and I'm not saying like this is for everybody. People who are building brands, you're going to think about it a little bit differently than people who are building, only have 10 listings or 5 listings or really less than 10. Airbnb makes it stupid simple for us. So we don't want to complicate things for us and for them, since they make it so simple, especially in the occupancy tax side. I see this happen probably about once a month. Somebody comes to me and is like, I'm not charging the right amount of tax on Airbnb, or I'm not charging the right amount of tax because my county charges this extra tax for direct bookings. Or like, oh, I should have been paying, from direct bookings, I should have been paying tax. Like, a lot of people don't think about it. And it's just one of those things that we got to take that extra step. I used to use my lodge tax. If you're taking direct bookings and you're not paying the occupancy taxes, just check out mylodgetax.com. It's not cheap right now. It used to be way cheaper. I think their prices have gone enormous, but at least they give you the information that you need. You can have a call with them to see if it's the right fit, but I think they charge like $300 setup and then like $35 a listing a month right now. So it's making Airbnb, even more appetizing for, direct bookings, or not doing direct bookings in that case. Gannon has a good point. I think a lot of us hosts got a little spoiled and don't realize how good Airbnb has been to us and how much opportunity they have created. Absolutely. And I totally agree with you. I think there's things that Airbnb does that is less and less and less and less and less and less host friendly. I talked about the review removal process earlier. It is a pain. And there's other policies like this policy. It's just, it's making our lives tougher. But at the end of the day, it's still a pretty dang good platform, and they only charge us 3% to acquire a customer. Now, we just have to adapt to their policies. And then if you want to build a brand outside of Airbnb, do it through social media, do it through things inside your listing to get them to know you and know your brand, because everybody knows Airbnb. Everybody knows Airbnb. So who's going to know NC Stays? That's my brand. I'm going to start putting koozies with, little QR codes on a book direct with us inside of every single one of our listings. That'll cost me probably, I would say, $200 to get 200 of them, put 10 in, my important listings. Little things like that. That's not going to cost you much money that you can do to start building a brand. One on social media, pick one social media platform, post once a week. You do that, and you can build more of a brand. You can partner with influencers, that sort of thing, that can showcase your properties. Then your brand will get more and more and more views, and you'll rely less and less on Airbnb for, future bookings. So Juliana said, not being able to send surveys to get guest feedback on our business isn't cool. I agree with you. Technically you're getting it through the review process from Airbnb. They think they do it best. And I get some really good feedback from guests in private feedback. Sometimes they put it public. Sometimes they they think it's public and it's really private, and vice versa. Yeah, I don't think that's cool. I think that was something I was going to implement too, of just being able to send them a survey to ask them about their stay. That's a little bit different from Airbnb, so I can get some more feedback on what amenities I should have and how each guest can be better. But at the end of the day, it's just their policy and we're living in it. Gannon said, why not build your brand within Airbnb? I'm sure if you bring the product that Airbnb wants to represent themselves with, they will never stop sending you guests. Yeah. I mean, there's been 600,000 new listings in the last 4 years. Airbnb wants more and more people on their platform. They're always changing their algorithm too. So, again, and I agree with you, but also the supply's up. And if there's other properties that are doing the right thing, then they're going to showcase those properties too, which is probably going to reduce your ADR more than anything. Again, if you want a summary of this stuff and kind of my thoughts on it, I've got this document that I just need to clean up. I'll probably send it out tomorrow to everybody, but just comment policy in the comments and I'll send it to you. I think this is very important to stay on top of this. There's some changes that I'm making. Just to summarize it, the changes that I'm making is I'm no longer asking guests for their email inside of the Airbnb platform. I'm putting all of my HOA rules and any rules about rental agreements, I'm putting that in my listing very clearly so that guests know beforehand that they need to fill out a rental agreement and also an HOA agreement before they even book with me. I'm going to test out putting QR codes tastefully in my properties. I'm also going to beef up my check-in and check-out instructions that are in Airbnb if in case my hostfully guidebooks get, removed or get blocked and I don't know about it. And then, I'm still going to do Waivo. I'm obviously keeping that inside the ADR. So it gets baked into that fee. I don't charge any other fees. I don't collect any money through Venmo. And then what I'm looking at doing in the future is looking at, different tools that can automate text messages on my behalf. Things like Zapier that can automate, some sort of communication off platform with the guest. That's something I have been looking at. There's different AI tools that I've also looked at to, video myself saying, hey, hey, Matt, this is Mike. Thank you so much for booking with me. I can't send videos through Airbnb right now. So I was thinking about doing that off platform anyways. That may be something that I do in the future. I'll probably be calling guests more too and get more of a personal connection. I think that's something that I do miss anyways. And then lastly, just to recap some of the frequently asked questions, can I still use StayFi? Yes. Can I still send rental agreements? You should be if you are software connected, PMS like Guesty, Hostaway, Hospitable. Can I still collect the guest ID? Yes, if it's required by your HOA or if you're software connected, like I mentioned. And then can I still use Venmo to collect payments? That's a hard no. Do not collect any money off of Airbnb's platform. Do not send your Venmo. Do not send your Zelle or anything like that off platform. And then lastly, for those of you that are using Happy Guest or HostCo, it may be something that you guys want to do and market inside of your homes instead of through the Airbnb messaging platform because they are using AI to detect all of this stuff. And if their AI is anywhere similar to the review removal process, it's going to suck. I'll call a spade a spade. So we need to pay attention to that. But yeah, Michael said Twilio for SMS. So if you guys, again, if you want my document here, just comment policy. I'll send it to you guys. If you have other questions, feel free to post them in. Appreciate everybody. Have a great rest of the week and take care. See ya.